Why you only hit me in the Discord? Baby, like
hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Allie, and I am finally getting to this daunting video. Once again, this time around, I really wanted to have this video filmed and done in like November and December, but here I am in the new year filming this, and I honestly don't even know when I will have the time to sit down and even put together all of the clips that I've accumulated over the past year. But I do want to make this intro as brief as possible, so I will have a playlist linked with last year's so you can get somewhat of an idea, or if you want to see my thoughts on the previous year's best of horror from GoodReads, because that is what this is. It is finally my best of horror 2025 video from the GoodReads Choice Awards. Obviously, there's no surprises. I didn't even film like a blind reaction this time around. I wasn't really shocked by anything that has made the list. I do have my laptop here with me to look at, and I will throw them up for you guys as well. We have a lot of names on here who are typically on here every year. We have Witchcraft for Wayward Girls from Grady Hendrix, The Lamb by Lucy Rose, Hungerstone by Kat Dunn, The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones, Blood on Her Tongue by Johanna van Veen, When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy, Bat Eaters and Other Names for Cora Zeng by Kylie Lee Baker, Immaculate Conception by Ling Huang, Never Flinch by Stephen King, Coffin Moon by Keith Rosson, The Bewitching by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle, What Hunger by Catherine Zeng, The Possession of Alba Diaz by Isabel Cañas, How Bad Things Can Get by Darcy Coates, Breathe In, Bleed Out by Brian McGauley, Play Nice by Rachel Harrison, You Weren't Meant to Be Human by Andrew Joseph White, We Love You Bunny by Mona Awad, and The Haunting of Payne's Hollow by Kelly Armstrong. I think the ones I'm most surprised about are The Haunting of Payne's Hollow, How Bad Things Can Get, and Breathe In, Bleed Out. Not because they're bad books or anything like that. All phenomenal authors. I've read 2 out of the 3, so I will definitely see about the third one. But more so because these are not the names that typically pop up, so it's honestly really cool to see some indie authors on here. At least, you know, in Brian McGauley's case, that is so exciting to see one of his covers on here. And I rather enjoyed my time with that one. Also, I actually really enjoyed The Haunting of Payne's Hollow. I thought the writing was pretty great on it, and I had a really good time with it. But it did read a little bit less horror and more thriller, and that's why I'm a little surprised that it's on here. And also, I thought I had read a Darcy Coates. I think I have. I may have not. But I don't know. I think I just got the general idea that, like, maybe this is just me blanking on this, but I thought Darcy Coates was more of a thriller writer also. I could be completely wrong on that, so don't come at me. I don't know. For some reason, I had it in my head that she was a thriller writer. Last year, I also mentioned, I think like halfway through my video, which ones I was shocked didn't make the list. And while I'm sure there are some that I have not gotten to from 2025 that could have very easily made this list, I only could come up with 2 when I went back through my GoodReads. One of them was Victorian Psycho by Virginia Fato. I think is how you pronounce that. I read it at the very end of my year, but it was incredible. I really liked that book. Also, Wake Up and Open Your Eyes by Clay McLeod Chapman. I would have really loved to see his name on this list as well. But without further ado, you guys, let's get into this long video. Over the past year, I have been reading through these 20 books, and I'm going to slice it up and show you guys clips from then. Maybe current me will have to pop in during editing and fill in the gaps here and there. Bear with me. But I have so much fun kind of going back through my year and seeing what I thought of each of these books, compiling them into 2 different parts. This will be part 1, and stay tuned for part 2. If it's already up, it'll be linked above, and it'll be linked in the description box. I'll be speed running 10 of them in this video and 10 of them in the next one. And in the next video at the end, I will be comparing my ranking of the 20 versus GoodReads 20 and how they came in the end and who won and all of that.
Hate this, but I don't wanna go home. Focus 2 hours left in your Netflix show. Over attachment, can you even let you go? I've been over obsessive about right now, but I think it's the best if we end somehow. Never knew what you wanted, cause you never told me nothing. Have you if you want it, you can kill me if I'm bluffing. Would you love me for the rest of my days? If you knew every time I lied just by the look on my face. Are we a 10-minute love song that we're playing in Nissan? No, we don't need to be one. No, we don't need to be one.
They're like, oh, there you go again. Are we more than friends? I know we can make this work. 20 missed calls, oh yeah, no shit, no problem, baby. Please don't hit my phone, I'm in bed. Let me spiral in the hole till I'm dead.
Was it something that I said? If it wasn't really sorry, I get caught up in my head. Had you put me in your plans, had to lay it in my bed. Reminiscing about the time I wasn't lonely, but I am. Can you waste my time instead?
Well, it wasn't a witch book. I have 2 full drafts of this book where it was called, I think the original title was All of Them Witches, but then we found out that, because that's the name of the book about witches in Rosemary's Baby, but then we found out that Ira Levin's estate is very litigious, so my editor was like, we can't do that. So then it was called The Witches of Wellwood House, like The Witch of Blackbird Pond, you know.
I've gotten my bookmark and stickers, and are they not the cutest? I will have to show you guys an overlay video of them because I don't have them near me, but I'm so excited to use them. The stickers, oh my gosh. Like there's one big sticker that I'll be able to put on like my journal, but I have completely finished Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix, and tonight was the live or Zoom with In the Void Book Club, Sarah, and all of the members and Grady Hendrix himself. Dare I say I loved this more than my best friend's exorcism. They're so neck and neck, but I think that this is my favorite Grady Hendrix, and I feel like it's because I related so much with this book, and I am going to try to keep this as spoiler-free and like under a certain time frame so that I'm not just sitting here rambling forever. But there is so much I could say about this. It took me so long to finish this. I've been reading it for weeks. The reason being is I've been triggered so much that I've had to set it down over and over again. It's been so hard to pick up and finish. I've cried many, many times. And yeah, it's a very heavy read. Please check your triggers before you jump into this. I definitely recommend it. It's Grady Hendrix. He is incredible. And this man's mind and the way that he wraps everything up and just makes everything fall into place is just incredible. And going to his like actual tour show and seeing him spit bars and talk about witches was so much fun and entertaining. But to actually have a discussion about this book tonight with him and him speak his mind about his writing process and all the things he learned and why he wrote this type of book was just so touching, and I'm so glad I got to experience that. And it really helped the journey of reading this too, of having it be a buddy read, but also I wanted to hear more from him. I loved his presentation and everything he did for the tour, but I was so excited tonight to be able to hear him speak about this and why he wrote certain things the way he did, and his own background with having 2 of his family members who were sent off to these maternity homes back in the day, and also just all the research and stuff that he's compiled and just how devastated he was reading about it and knowing that he needed to turn it into this, and then finding out that he had like 14 drafts of this. And this is such a big book. Like, oh my gosh, it's a monster. It's over 400 pages and it was just, oh my gosh. And just like my recent Hungerstone read, oh, I do have my bookmark right here. But just like my recent Hungerstone read, I highlighted the shit out of this. Like, I went through 2.5 highlighters. Oh, I just loved it so much though. It was so meaningful and just so beautiful. Every time there was a part that I was just like, oh, I don't know if I like this, he just would just wrap it up in a way that I'm just like, it makes sense. Like, this world is cruel. This world is just awful. The people are awful. And you have to make with it what you can, and you have to look out for yourself, because sometimes nobody's going to look out for you. And the challenges that these girls faced from being so young and being pregnant. I was a pregnant teenager, and in many ways I related to them because they don't know about contraception, and like they don't really know all the details about like periods and stuff like that. And I grew up in a home where I didn't know about a lot of stuff like that until I was much older. I didn't have those early talks about anything, and we're fortunate to live in a day and age where you have access to internet, you have access to more stuff. Schools are showing more stuff, not, you know, as much, you know, as probably needed, but some places I feel like they do. And not having any of that, I related with them so much of getting my first period and thinking, oh my gosh, like I'm dying and not knowing what to do. And then just being handed products and saying, that's what you do with them. And then just having to just move on. And slowly in life, being a woman, it just continues to be that way. Going to your first pap smear, going in for your first appointment, being pregnant, and not feeling so alien to your body, like my body's so different now, like I'm sharing it with someone else, and having to go in and be poked and prodded and not knowing what to expect. And I would ask family members, I was 17, and I would ask family members and they'd just be like, yeah, I don't remember what happened. It's like I had nobody to talk to about the experience, and I just went into it blindly, not knowing, is this okay? If this is what they're doing, like, is that okay? Is this going to hurt me? Is this going to hurt the baby? And let alone all of this happening before Roe versus Wade, and now that Roe versus Wade is overturned, it's so devastating that the options are not out there. And although I feel like not a lot of that discussion is talked about until the mention of it later on, because this does take place in 1970, so a few years before Roe versus Wade became a thing, it's the fact that in a time like that where women didn't have options, there were over, I forgot what he said. It was in his his acknowledgements. It became widespread between 1945 and 1973. From the end of World War II until Roe versus Wade, there were 190 homes for unwed mothers that existed in 46 states. Is that not insane? That these homes, for one, existed, but for two, would take these girls away from their parents. They stayed with strangers and then were willed off to have their babies, and then ripped away from their babies, whether they wanted that or not, to be put back into their life and to pretend like nothing ever happened, and their parents not wanting them to talk about it, wanting them to move on and just be normal, and just telling them like the most degrading things, like them going to the hospital. And because back in the 60s and 70s, I did know this, that they shave you, they give you an enema, they do very invasive things to you before you give birth, which they don't thankfully do anymore. Them trying to shave her and tell her to spread her legs, and she's saying no, and they're saying, wow, I didn't expect you to say that, spread them. And it's just like, what, because she's a teenager and she's pregnant? Like, the rage you will feel reading this. Like, I'm about to cry, like, just talking about it, because oh my gosh, I was so mad throughout this book. And a lot of it does come down to the fact of having those angry family members who are, at this time, definitely, but even in today's day and age, like even myself, having family members who are going to be so mad at me for being pregnant at 17, but they're not going to take me to get an abortion. whether that was something I wanted or not. In my case, I was completely fine having a baby, not knowing what all was going to happen to me, but that thought wasn't in my mind of having an abortion. But this book does such a good job at highlighting so many different young girls and what they're going through, how they're feeling. Some of them have that desire to keep their baby, and some of them have the desire of just being like, I just want my normal life back. Like, I wish that this never would have happened to me. And if they had the choices. The birthing scenes, I will say, are intense if you don't like those type of things in books, but I feel like it does highlight a lot that goes on. I had my first baby at 17 and it was 2013, okay? Like, he's gonna be 12 this year. So 12 years ago, and my experience, besides the shaving and enema, but my experience was so close to the same as Fern's in this book. If you read this book, you will understand. But I had rude nurses, and looking back, I think it was because I was 17 and I wasn't married. I feel like I wasn't treated equally, and they had me in tears. We had to kick a nurse out of my room because she was so awful to me. It's going to be a hard experience no matter what, but if you're not comfortable, it is horrible. I have so much trauma from it, and it's so hard, so hard. Going in with my second kid, I was a wreck because I was just like, I went in angry because I was like, nobody's gonna treat me bad. The experience I had, and yes, I had different nurses, but the experience I had going in as a 17-year-old unwed woman to being in my 20s and married and going in and having a baby were fucking night and day. Obviously, this book talks about so much when it comes to having a baby and those aspects of it, but I feel like it's much deeper than that. It's the talk of being a woman and feeling like you don't have power when you do. You have so much power, you just have to scare them. You have to scare them and use your power. The metaphors used here with witches were just amazing, and I loved it. And yes, everybody's cruel, everybody is out to get them, and life just sucks sometimes. Not to mention how far this goes into SA and that way of being pregnant and being forced to carry that child and to live through that. Anyways, I could talk about this all day. I feel like he did an incredible job, especially a man writing a book about women, about a bunch of young kids that are pregnant. These are young girls who had nobody, not a single person in their corner besides each other, and getting through that and just really making it into such an elaborate and just beautiful but tragic story. And I feel like this healed a lot of pieces in me. So thank you to Grady Hendrix. 5 stars, if you couldn't tell.
If you knew every time I lied just by the look on my face.
And a little side disclaimer, I am getting over being sick, so I apologize at the beginning of this video if my voice sounds rough. I'm finally feeling human again. It's The Lamb by Lucy Rose, and I devoured this. And I actually hate using that word for this because of the cannibalism within this, which is disgusting. This book is vile. It is so vile. It's disgusting. And I don't think I've quite ever read anything like this. I feel like this is a cross between Yellow Jackets, a cross between Hansel and Gretel, and probably something else that I'm forgetting. But it very much so is a dark, twisted story. It almost is so dark and just grotesque that, like, I kept getting taken out of the story and wondering what time period this is. Like, is this supposed to be current day? And I think I've already checked. Yeah, I think I've went back and forth because I'm just like, is this current day? Because it feels like it's not. There's no way that this could be current day. But we have this little girl who is going to public school. She's riding the bus and she's making friends at school, but also being told to be quiet, don't be too much, don't draw attention. Because at home, her mother, they live out in the middle of nowhere. Her mother is drawing in like strangers who get lost out in the woods to eat them. She has her daughter eating humans and craving human, and as her daughter's getting older, she's putting together the pieces that this isn't right. Like, other people don't do this. I'm being told to be quiet. Like, she's putting those pieces together where, like, her young, innocent mind couldn't comprehend that, couldn't wrap her brain around this not being a normal thing, but now she's seeing this is not a normal thing, especially whenever she gets close with somebody who is a friend of hers, and she's like, I can't let my mom know about this friend, because if I do, she might try to eat her, and I can't lose this friend. And then another stranger comes up and just becomes the perfect fit for her mother to add into the posse, if you will. And she joins in on their activities. It is dark, it is gut-wrenching, and it's devastating. Oh my God, check your triggers. It is insane how jarring this book is. With that being said, I did give it 5 stars. It's good. It's beautifully written. It's so thought out, and like, oh, she really knows how to just make your stomach churn. Like, I wanted to throw up reading this book, but I also couldn't put it down and just had to keep reading. I had to know what happened to this character. I had to know what rage-filled moment we were going to get. And while I will say, on the level of this being like rage, I would probably give it a lower rating, because I feel like this wasn't the rage I was looking for. But what I did really enjoy from this was the subtle amount of rage like filtered throughout it, of this anticipation, like this building anticipation of it, and being like, when is it gonna hit her? Like, when is she gonna finally be like, that's it, you know? Like, I can't live this way anymore, and you guys are monsters, and oh, it was so good. Definitely check it out if this is your type of book, but you have been warned. It is, it's a rough one.
They were playing in Nissan. No, we don't need to be one. No, we don't need to be one.
I did finish Hungerstone, so I want to talk about it. You guys, this book blew me away. I do have a clip that I wanted to insert from my book haul, because I did in fact film my book haul a couple days ago. My books are still piled up behind me as we speak. I have to put them away today too. This is the clip that I said about Hungerstone. I had just started it, so no spoilers, but like, it was, I started it and was like, the fact that I did start it already, and I was like, this is interesting. Like, this is reminding me of something. And then there's like this carriage accident or something, and they save this girl and take her to their home, and her name is Carmilla. And I was like, oh my God, it's a Carmilla retelling. I didn't even know that, you guys. My friend had told me it was a sapphic vampire story, and I had seen the cover and was like, sold. So that's initially why I got it. I love vampires, so I was ready for a good time, and like the sapphic part of it was reminding me of like S.T. Gibson, so I was like, I'm probably gonna love this. No idea it was a Carmilla retelling, and I'm so here for that. I am enjoying this so far. I'm excited to see where it takes me, and still shocked that I didn't know that this was a Carmilla retelling, but like, come on. That is just, ever since I read Carmilla, I have just been obsessed, and I've read An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. Such a good book too. I want to say I gave this one 4 stars though. This one is a 5. But the reason I have these two is because I wanted to compare a little bit between the two. This one's a little bit longer than Hungerstone, but they both have such beautiful writing. This one is a little bit more gothic beautiful, and this one's a little bit more like elegant beautiful, and like vintage, if you will. This takes place, I want to say like 18, I think they said 1889 or something like that, and it was just so beautifully done. We follow Lady Lenore and her dreadful husband Henry. They are together. We're kind of getting a little bit of like their backstory of how they met. It's almost like it's a story she doesn't really want to talk about. Then we find out her childhood is also a story she doesn't really want to talk about. When she was very, very young, in a carriage and horse accident, she lost her entire family. She was the only survivor. And then she was pretty much sent off to live with a relative that was kind of like a love-hate relationship. It just wasn't a very good like upbringing for her. And so we are constantly getting flashbacks to her past and to why she is the person she is today. Maybe why she holds back a little bit, why she makes herself so small, and just so many hard-hitting topics that were just incredible, so relatable. I felt seen. But on top of that, we now deal with the present and like what she's dealing with Henry, who is putting so much on her and requires so much of her time when she can get maybe a speck of his time. They sleep in different rooms, and he has now bought them an estate where they are traveling to. And upon traveling to it, they see an accident of another carriage, and Henry and their driver, or, you know, rider, whatever, I forgot what they're called, pull out this woman who is hurt, take her back to their estate, and put her up in one of their guest rooms. Her name is Carmilla. And they're starting to realize this really weird, eerie thing going on with her. She barely comes out of her room. She barely eats. Is she wandering around at nighttime? Hungerstone comes into play because of the cliffs nearby. One of them is called Hungerstone. And the beauty of the writing of this is just incredible. One of the best written books I've ever read when it comes to the writing. I feel like the story, I absolutely love the story, but I feel like it could have been the blandest plot, yet this writing makes it so engaging and just so interesting. I don't know if it's going to be for everybody. I think you kind of have to enjoy the slow burn of it, which I probably wouldn't have if it wasn't for the writing just working so well for me. It is a future envied by many, I say instead, for it is. I have fought for this life when I could have so easily drowned beneath the waters of my misfortune. No one has loved me for so many a long year. I have done it all from spite. If the world offers me no kindness, then I will take from it armor and sword, create an unassailable fortress for myself, and lock the door. The moon and stars are concealed by cloud, so it is as though we have been plucked from the face of the earth and set amongst some inhuman landscape of nothingness. When Lucifer fell from heaven, was this how he found hell? A cold, blank world into which no good thing could be born? I was too much, too loud, too emotional, too clumsy, too self-involved. My existence was a burden to all involved with it, and I resolved to never make any demand if I could help it. Then perhaps I could be tolerated. Then perhaps I could be loved. The only way to survive the position I now found myself in was to sever my existence neatly at the point of the carriage accident and discard what had come before. Who I had been died alongside my parents, and I was born again in the funeral house with Aunt Daphne. I felt quite mad at these times. Anything I said or did. Silence didn't serve me, nor did any pretty speech. All I could do was train myself to her whims and weather and endeavor to match myself accordingly. I had no one who loved me, no one who dreamed sweet visions of my future and made careful plans to shepherd me through childhood and into a kind, compassionate world. All I had was myself, and the weight of that burden was almost more than I could bear. Oh, so pretty. But when I tell you, I have never highlighted so much in my life. I need to take a video of this because I don't know if you guys can see all of that, but like I highlighted the shit out of this book. And if you look closely on these pages, it's like a light purple, and then back here it's a dark purple, and I hate that, but I couldn't put this book down yesterday. I was like, I don't have time to go buy a new highlighter. I opened a highlighter for the first time and used up all of the ink in it. in the first half of this book that I had to find another purple highlighter that unfortunately was darker and use it for the rest of it. But oh my gosh, it was so beautiful and I couldn't put it down. I did mention already, this comes out, I want to say the 18th. So I got early read because of Aardvark Book Club. Although I want to say this has already been out in the UK, if I'm not mistaken. Like this is just going to be the US release of it, but incredible. I also looked up the cover to the UK version and it is so pretty. It's like hot pink, this vibe, but like hot pink, and I kind of feel like I need it. Like I need to try to figure out where I can order the UK cover. Also, I'm questioning myself because I didn't even look at the back of this, and up at the top, really big, it says, "A compulsive feminist reworking of Carmilla, the queer novella that inspired Dracula." You know, if I would have read that, I would have known, but the shock of it all was so cool, and I love that. Also, you guys, if you take the dust jacket off, how beautiful is this green color? And I love the soft touch of the Aardvark books. Anyways, with that being said, 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. It's feminist, it's female rage, it's vampire, it's Carmilla retelling. There's so much in this. You're going to feel the rage with Lenore. You're going to go through the motions with her. You're going to uncover her secrets and her past and what makes her the way she is. And then the ultimate female rage. It is quite the time. Book for this video, The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. So we're gonna jump into this one now. I just love this copy. The edges, oh, it's so pretty. And I got it signed. This chilling historical novel is set in the nascent days of the state of Montana, following a Blackfeet Indian named Good Stab as he haunts the fields of the Blackfeet Nation looking for justice. It begins when a diary written in 1912 by a Lutheran pastor is discovered within a wall in 2012. What is unveiled is a slow massacre, a nearly forgotten chain of events that goes back to 217 Blackfeet dead in the snow, told in the transcribed interviews with Good Stab, who shares the narrative of his peculiar and unnaturally long life over a series of confessional visits. This is an American Indian revenge story, captured in the vivid voices of the time. There's not really chapters in this. Last night I got to page 36, so I only read about that much. Still a pretty good dent. My reading at the game, or the practice, was phenomenal. I also have the audiobook on Everend that I am using, so I'm hoping I'll be able to listen to some of it maybe today while we're like on the road and stuff. But I really like that we have the point of view of the person who has found this diary and is reading it and researching it for like a paper. And when it goes into the diaries, like entries, she'll like for the audiobook, she'll start reading it and then he starts reading it, like the person who, the Lutheran pastor starts reading with her until it's just his voice. It kind of fades into just his voice. Chef kiss, phenomenal touch, the audiobook. And we are getting kind of the beginning story of this Lutheran pastor and what is going on in the area. And has met now Good Stab, who came into his church and is now at that point of the confessional. That's as far as I've gotten, but I love Stephen Graham Jones, so the writing's already phenomenal. I've heard nothing but amazing things about this. It's on my 25 and 25, so it's another one I'll be checking off. Yeah, I'm super stoked to finally be getting to this one. I am 120 pages in, and it really has been less of the like journalist or the woman who is writing a piece on it and more so what she's reading. Like we're reading it at the same time that she is and going through it. And now it's just kind of jumping back and forth between this pastor's diary, letters, whatever, to then being Good Stab's like account of everything going on. And I feel like I have to tread so lightly with this because I don't know, like, it's just one of those weird ones where like I don't know if saying this is a spoiler or not. So I'm gonna tread really lightly because I don't want to spoil this for you guys. But I do get Sinners vibes. Like I mean, we are hearing from a pastor, so there's kind of like this religious aspect to it. There is a vampire aspect, and it is taking place right now in 1912, but it feels very action and Western type of vibe, kind of like Sinners. That's how I'm visualizing it. Like when these scenes happen, I'm like, oh my God, like it's just like the movie. I can like visualize it. And there's actually a scene in Sinners earlier on in the movie where this guy, you know, burning from the sun, stumbles upon these people's doorstep and asks to come in for help, and they let him in. And right after that, this like tribe comes through and they're trying to tell her of the warning, and like, if you've already invited this person in, like, God bless your soul, like, you know, you've already done it, pretty much. And that whole scene is like encapsulating like what this has been so far for me, and I'm just more and more excited to see where it goes. I did in fact finish The Buffalo Hunter, and it's one of my favorites from him. I started this really intrigued, interested, wondering where all this was gonna go. I feel like the plot of this is very mysterious in a way. Like it doesn't really give too much away of what you're about to get into, and it is, oh my Lord. This is for historical fiction people who like that twist of horror and real life horror, because it's devastating. It's a hard one. Please check your triggers, but it is so, so good. And then you mix Stephen Graham Jones writing on top of it. Oh my God. I just loved it. I ate it up. I've been super emotional, obviously. So being that emotional, I also found myself crying while reading this. I don't know if everybody else is going to really experience that. I mean, it's very sad, especially if you get the Barnes & Noble edition, because the back has like some of the history of some of the inspiration for this story and what actually happened to a Blackfeet tribe. And reading that last night, because I had put off reading the little history part, since it's not like an actual part of like the book. It's just kind of what inspired some of his writing. I was bawling my eyes out. Yeah, this follows, it starts off and it ends with this reporter or journalist. We have a little bit of her at the beginning, and then it jumps straight into the diary entries, and then it'll kind of switch to the point of view of Good Stab, who is our vampire vigilante who is seeking revenge, and he tells us about the people who he is taking revenge on, and he is saying it and telling the story in a kind of like a confessional way to the priest. And then it will cut back and forth between the two of them kind of throughout it, and then at the end we get back into, I already forgot her name. She has a really cool name too, Etsy. We go back to Etsy, the journalist, who is talking about it, and she's also like she has like a tape recorder that she's recording herself on, and the audiobook is really cool because it has that mixed media effect of making it sound like a tape recorder. How her story even ties into all of it is so cool. The different aspects of this body horror wise, and where he took it with this vampire being and all of the traits was so unbelievably cool. But on top of that, bringing forward another really meaningful story of history, really brutal, dark history that needs to be recognized, that needs to be put out there and talked about, because it's just horrible and it happened to these people. So beautifully done, wrapped up in this. And Weasel Plume, I love you. 5 stars, if you couldn't already tell. If you pick this one up, it is slow burn Stephen Graham Jones, so you have to be a Stephen Graham Jones person for this one. But if you pick it up, make sure you read the afterword. He is incredible at describing what goes into the writing process and why he chose this story and different things that would happen that would make him change the direction of it, and his heartfelt, you know, thanks to all of his friends and his wife. And it's just so, it's always so sweet. I cry at the afterwards every time. And also, if you get the Barnes & Noble edition, you can check out the little history pieces that he put in the back that are gut-wrenching, but really show where the inspiration and everything came from. And I love that. I love when an author from a certain culture brings forth their history and talks about it in a way of bringing awareness and also making it so entertaining for us with a good, really thought out story that has so many deep elements of it that, oh, I loved it so much. And I think it was a wrong time for me to be reading it because I've been super emotional, but nonetheless, it was so good. But I did complete another book. I read Blood on Her Tongue by Johanna van Veen. And I have some side tangents for you guys. First of all, if you see nail polish smeared around my fingers, no you didn't, okay? It was a very rushed ordeal, so it's not beautiful. Second of all, I thought I was saying Joanna's name wrong this entire time. I talked about Johanna last year for my Best of Horror Goodreads video, and I was like, I'm been saying their name wrong this entire time, because I did have the audio for this through my Hoopla, which was very nice, very beautiful narrator, the accent and everything, great, grand. But yeah, I was like, I've been saying their name wrong this entire time. And then we get into the story and I'm like, oh, no, it's just her accent and the way that she is enunciating things. Because the way that this narrator says Michael, it took me a minute. If it wasn't for the tandem read, I never would have guessed that his name was Michael, one of the characters in the story. So I do think it is Johanna van Veen, if I'm not mistaken. So that's what I'm gonna go with. My next little tangent, not really tangent, this is just something I wanted to like gush over. Besides the beautiful cover, and if you get this edition with the dripping edges, stunning. Even more artwork in the book that is so beautiful. We have like a little author's note at the beginning, kind of just letting you know like what you're getting yourself into, which was, I feel like, done so beautifully. Like it could have been worded like most, where it's just short and like to the point of like, there's gonna be this and this and this and this and this, where this author really tried to be like, I don't want to spoil the book for you, so I'm just gonna highlight a few things that like if it triggers you, I would steer away from. But the way that they did it was just incredible. But there's different parts throughout this book, and there's literally quotes from Dracula. If I've not already like so excited, and I literally cannot wait to reread Dracula for like the new Dracula movie coming out. I'm reading it very soon, rereading it, and I cannot wait. I didn't read Dracula all this year, and usually it's like a reread for me, so I'm on the edge of my seat. I cannot wait to pick it up, and Johanna does this to me. Literally the first one. I am longing to be with you and by the sea, where we can talk together freely and build our castles in the air. And it just continues, like every part. Let me see if I can find the next one. Oh no, I'm not seeing it. There is more. Oh, there's part 2. I sometimes think we must be all mad, and that we shall wake to sanity in straight waistcoats. Oh my God. And they were just perfect for this story. This follows, now this might be a little tangent, because if you've been on my channel, you know I don't like the twin trope. There is nothing against you twins out there. Like, I love twins. I have twins in my family. I love twins. But
the way that authors or directors use twins in books and movies usually is not for me, because you have to do the one of them goes missing and the other person shows up and everybody like, oh, they're found, and really it's their doppelganger twin, or it's one is good and one is evil. And I just feel like it's so overdone that like anytime I open a book or I start a movie and there's twins, I'm like, I'm already taken out of it. So Johanna, I feel like with the Dracula quote and how beautiful this book is and how beautiful your writing is, even with the twin trope, I was like, I can't put this down. Like, I don't know like what to expect with this twin ordeal, but I can't put this down. And with that being said, they don't do anything weird with the twins. Like, it is just a very cutthroat story about the lives of two twins, and one is going through something scary and intense, and the other one is going through the motions and grieving and trying to figure out what is happening to their sister. And so yeah, props to Johanna for doing a phenomenal job on the twin trope, because it never works for me and it does in this book. One sister, Lucy, is traveling, and by the way, this is in 1887. Lucy is traveling to her sister Sarah, who has become ill, is not acting like herself, is kind of trying to seek help, but also just like losing her mind. And it just unravels in this beautifully written Gothic tale of just spiraling into insanity. And there's so much more to it that would be too spoilery, because this book is like a jaw-dropping book. The twists and turns within this is incredible. You really stay on your toes. You don't know what's around the corner. And I just love that. It's also like so dark and eerie too, that like it creeps you out. And the imagery with how she describes like the gore and those moments, oh my gosh, I was grossed out. Maybe not as much as the last one, The Lamb, because that was pretty gross. But in its own way, this one is very disgusting and disturbing as well. And I like that this one, kind of like The Lamb, is kind of just like this subtle amount of female rage throughout. It's just kind of sprinkled throughout, but it's very subtle, and then it's built up. So it's like, again, that anticipation of like this huge female rage moment that I am enjoying. I liked the characters. I like the story, the plot. I even love the ending. I loved everything about this. Reading this and experiencing this book was like my time with Hungerstone. I ate that book up so fast. If this was my copy, this is the library's copy, I would have been highlighting and annotating the entire time. It was so beautiful. Definitely will be picking up my copy of this. And if you watched my Goodreads video from 2024, I liked their last novel, but I think it was My Darling Dreadful Thing, but it still wasn't an all-time favorite for me. This, 5 stars. I love it. Putting off When the Wolf Comes Home by Cassidy for so long, and I really want to get to it. So that's what I'm gonna do. Also have another Aardvark copy because I really wanted my first Nat Cassidy hardback, and I absolutely love this so much. It is so pretty. I have read Mary and Nestlings as well as Rest Stop and a couple of his other short stories through Shortwave Publishing. He is definitely a fave for me, and look at these colors once again. The colors for both of these books were just so stunning. Absolutely love it. And that like soft touch. Oh, I just love Aardvark's books so much. I have already started this. I've made it a little ways in. One night, Jess, a struggling actress, finds a 5-year-old runaway hiding in the bushes outside her apartment. After a violent, bloody encounter with the boy's father, she and the boy find themselves running for their lives. As they attempt to evade the boy's increasingly desperate father, horrifying incidents of butchery follow them. At first, Jess thinks she understands what they are up against, but she's about to learn that there's more to these surreal and grisly events than she could have ever imagined. And that when the wolf finally comes home, no one will be spared.
I'm not a big werewolf fan, so this one is definitely going to be more hit or miss for me. There's definitely ones that I love, but yeah, I have found out over the years that I definitely am more team vampire than team werewolf, but it's not Cassidy. I am so excited, and I am enjoying it so far. We have met Jess, her job at like this diner, and how she is wanting to become an actress, so she has auditions and stuff to go to, and just kind of her day-to-day life, like the people she surrounds herself with, and we're getting a little bit of her past. Her and her mother don't have the most amazing relationship, and then on top of that, they were notified that her father passed, and for her, it's kind of like this gaping hole in her chest, because it's hard as an adult to think back to something that was traumatic in your childhood, like your father leaving you at 6 and never seeing him again, and now finding out that he's no longer on earth and being like, what did I miss out on? There's a lot of daddy issues to unpack there, and the daddy issues in me are like, oh my god, I'm triggered already and trying my best to like keep it together. But I will say, I really like the pacing so far. She has already got this kid. She's protecting him. The father is coming after them. It's been very gruesome and grisly and just very cutthroat right now. Like, we're just taking out people left and right. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't expect that, especially so soon. But it is a pretty short one. It looks kind of average length here, but I feel like the way the font is and stuff, this is literally less than 300 pages. The font is just very... I don't know, like they're long pages, but at the same time, it just reads really fast. But I'm liking it so far. I would be lying if I said I wasn't sobbing towards the end of this. And definitely with the afterword. This book, oh my gosh. I haven't even had the chance to watch back the live show yet from Gabby, but I'm so excited to, and to hear everybody's thoughts on it. I have seen... not that many like detailed reviews of this, but more so people just saying like, this is the best from Nat Cassidy, or people who barely read his work and being like, wow, this was great. I have not seen one negative thing about this book, and now I understand why, which, not gonna lie, it was a 5-star prediction for me because it is Nat Cassidy and I love his work. And although I do feel like some of the style of it is a lot different than Mary and Nestlings, at the same time, at the heart of it, there is so much that are similar. And he even talks about in his afterword how the 3 of them are about grief that he experienced in his life. And this is kind of his form of therapy of taking that grief and putting it into something. And while Mary was kind of about his mother, Nestlings, I can't remember what he had mentioned, but this obviously is about his father. And although he makes sure to say like there's not a character in here that is his father, there is definitely characteristics and other nods for sure. The spoilery of this story, of trying to review it without spoiling anything, is really hard. What I will say is that you do get this like werewolf, almost like shapeshifter moment. He does thank some people at the end in his afterword and says like where he got some inspiration from, and there was quite a few on that list that I was like, yep, that's what I was thinking while I was reading this. One in particular, but I cannot say what it is because it would be too big of a spoiler for this story. It reads a lot like, although a horror, a thriller. And that's why I can see where this is a perfect pick for the book troupe, because it is definitely, I feel like, in the thriller genre, because it is very fast paced. You're kind of like on the edge of your seat, like wondering what's going to happen next. It's very cutthroat. But there's just so many elements of this, because at the same time you also have this horror sci-fi element, and definitely not what I was expecting. I was actually expecting a little bit more of the horror from a werewolf, but it kind of being a cat and mouse chase, which it is, but it just kind of leading off there. So it would kind of be like a thriller horror, but there's so much more to this book, and I just loved every bit of it. Also, all of the metaphors with having quote-unquote daddy issues and the different struggles that even in your adulthood you can go through with having those type of issues with either one of your parents. And it was very prominent in the story, and that is what really stuck out for me and what really like made me emotional, because he definitely had me in my feels with my own issues. 5 stars. I love this so much. I think it's going to be up there in my favorite books of the year. It was so good, and I'm just once again amazed by Nat Cassidy and his storytelling, and definitely do not skip on his afterwords when you read his books. They are so meaningful and just amazing. His afterword really goes into his life with his father. He just has a way of, obviously, like, this guy is hurting from the childhood and even adulthood that he had with his father and not being very present in his life, and what he calls a shapeshifter. But at the same time, he writes such a beautiful afterword honoring his father in a way of showing that although there is that like anguish there and that hurt, at the same time you can tell that he loved his father. And that sometimes is such a hard balance of realizing that yes, even though our fathers are not very present in our life, we love them so much, and that's what is hurting us so bad. And I know that's not everybody's story, and I understand that. This is just what really stuck out for me. But one of the things that I can really relate to that he wrote about was, before I go on though, let me make something clear. My dad isn't a character in this book. He wasn't a terror. He wasn't abusive. He wasn't an alcoholic. He didn't abandon me, though if you'd asked either of us about that at different periods of our lives, we would have said differently. Despite some superficial details, like our shared love of gin rummy and black licorice, there are very few specific references to my dad in this story. But my dad is everywhere in this book, because my dad was a shapeshifter. He goes on to talk about his father's life, the many lives his father had, which included a doctor, a teacher, a scholar, a politician, a cop, an amateur religious leader, and enough life for several lifetimes. My dad was brilliant and funny and fascinating. He was restless, inquisitive, passionate. He was also, for much of my life, mostly a complete stranger. I've never related to something more in my life. Wow. Just wow. I am amazed with this book.
That's my cue, no crew for the tape. Because all they think I'm too involved, need a break, what you call it? I call it love.
I'm going to be reading Bat Eaters and Other Names for Cora, Zeng by Kylie Lee Baker. This is the Aardvark edition, and it is just, oh my gosh, the cover is so stunning. And the colors for this all together, that blue with these actually like is so pretty. Cora Zeng is a crime scene cleaner, washing away the remains of brutal murders and unalivings in Chinatown. But none of that seems so terrible when she's already witnessed the most horrific thing possible, her sister Delilah being pushed in front of a train. Before fleeing the scene, the murderer shouted 2 words, "Bat Eater." So the bloody messes don't really bother Cora. She's more bothered by the germs of the subway railing, the bare hands of a stranger, the hidden viruses in every corner, and the bite marks on her coffee table. Of course, ever since Delilah was killed in front of her, Cora can't be sure what's real and what's in her head. She pushes away all feelings and ignores the advice of her aunt to prepare for the Hungry Ghost Festival when the gates of hell open. But she can't ignore the dread in her stomach as she keeps finding bat carcasses at crime scenes, or the scary fact that all of her recent cleanups have been the bodies of East Asian women. As Cora will soon learn, you can't just ignore hungry ghosts. I'm so excited for this one. I'm mad at myself. This is one that I'm so mad that I've put off for all of this time. So I am going to be diving into this. Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Zeng. I struggled with this one after I finished it because I agree. I went back and I watched the live show and I agreed. I was landing at that time at a 4. And it's a weird feeling of being like, I don't know if this is a full 5 for me. It feels like it's not a 5, but not knowing why. And the more that I listened to them and the more that like I was getting my thoughts together to talk to you guys, I honestly think it's lifted my rating because I feel like there's no reason for me to not give this a 5 in my personal opinion. Like with what I enjoy out of books, I feel like this is a 5. I don't think it's gonna be a top contender for like my favorite books of the year, but I don't know. I'm just to a point to where I don't think that I could not give this a 5. This, like I mentioned before, follows Cora, and she's not only had this tragic event with watching her sister die to a hate crime, but also she sees it every single day in her work with cleaning up these crime scenes of other East Asia women. While this is a horror story, it is real life horror because the same hate crime was happening in the time of 2020 with COVID, and people were being called these slurs and these horrible things and the fingers being pointed at them when they literally had nothing to do, obviously, with what was going on. It's ridiculous anyways, but to even think for a second, I sometimes like, I think because of the way I was raised and the people that I had to suffer with around me and where I live, like the mindset of some of these people of being so close-minded and small-minded that they think because of a mistake of one person, regardless of if that's the case or not, that to target any person who they think is on the same level or just because they have similar appearances or race or whatever, like that makes sense. Like it's just one of those things that keep you up at night and just you will never fully wrap your brain around it. And I'm like, why am I even trying to even think about this? Like it's just, it is mind-blowing. But the fact that it actually did happen is the real life horror that is intertwined in this story. It is devastating and heart-wrenching, and all of these attacks are just so vile and that it already gets a high rating for me. The writing, I think, was wonderful. I loved it. I do kind of feel like our characters are a little bit more at arm's length for us, but I feel like we did get to dive into Cora a little bit more to see her side struggling with OCD and having that dynamic of like she's going and cleaning up like these most goriest, gross, grotesque scenes and then going home and like tidying up and like washing her hands a lot, and it is wild. And I do agree, like it sounds weird, it sounds silly, like she wouldn't be able to, but like the form of like OCD that I feel like I struggle with is borderline that. Like I'm very particular at my house when it comes to certain things, and when they're not done a certain way. Like right now my bedroom is not completely tidy and it stresses me out. That when I go to somebody else's house, I couldn't care less like what it looks like, you know? So like I feel like I related with her so much because it's like I know that feeling of when it's yourself or when it's your things or whatever, it's like it has to be a certain way. And when it's everybody else, it's just, you kind of just go on with life. It's weird, but it's like, I honestly do prefer it because like, I never want anybody else to like feel weird. I already have friends that are just like, why is your house so clean? And I'm like, because if it's not, I will spiral. Also, like 9 times out of 10, it's not clean and I am spiraling because I'm trying to clean up after everybody. Anyways, I really liked that OCD, cleanliness, and just what goes into like not only being, it's not really the cleanliness as much as it is the obsessiveness to do a certain thing or to have a thing a certain way. I like that representation in this a lot. Besides how heartbreaking these horror moments were, I loved how she wrote them. They were very jarring. the body horror, just everything, how the horror was written was phenomenal. And that is why the more I thought about that and just everything that I've mentioned so far, I cannot walk away without giving this a 5. Like, I just think it's that good, and it is definitely going to be a favorite book of 2025. Maybe not my top ones, but still up there. And I just loved everything about this. And the bats, there's bats everywhere. There's this part where Cora is, in some other personal ways, like myself too, just kind of being a people pleaser and being pushed around, literally having to watch her sister die to a hate crime, but then go and clean up like another hate crime over and over and over again, and keeping her mouth shut. And there's constantly reporters and people like questioning about like these things happening, and finally getting to that point where she just snaps. And I'm like, yes, I am living through her. I am thriving right now. They're talking about this certain crime scene where there's no way that the bats got in by themselves. Like, they were placed there to send a message. And this reporter, he says, and you don't think the victim put them there. Cora lets out a sharp laugh. Why? Because it's normal for Chinese people to keep bats for pets. And like the reporter is like backtracking, like, oh, I just meant, and then she's like, because Chinese people like to shove bats down our own throats before blowing our brains out, or paint bat murals on our walls after slitting our own throats with hunting knives, when this whole city, this whole country calls us bat eaters. And it really is like this moment where she just continues to like explode and like really tell her thoughts, and in a way finally let up all of that pent up steam of like, I'm so tired of this. Like, I'm past tired. I'm exhausted that we're still seeing this and other people aren't wrapping their heads around it. Like, why are they not seeing what it is, what it clearly is, a hate crime? Takes on like this whole, is there a serial killer that's going around and taking out all of these women in a protest type of way to say that they are the ones that are responsible. They're no better than the person who started COVID, is like how their brain is working, I guess. Yeah. Anyways, it is a hard one. It is jarring at times and just wow. But if you have it in you, if you're able to, I definitely think it's a check your triggers still, but if you're able to, I definitely would check it out because it was such a great one. All right, you guys, I have started Immaculate Conception by Ling Huang. Honestly, I put this on my 25 in 2025 because I had heard such amazing things about the last book, which now I can't even think of what it's called. It was something about horror and the beauty industry. I still really want to get to it. I'm gonna say I am slightly bored. I hate to have that update. I think the premise of this is really cool. I don't think the writing is bad. It's intriguing. But when I tell you I am not I'm not a general fiction girly. I'm just not. I don't like it. I usually, at this point in my life, I will just DNF it. I'm bored. I don't want to read about somebody else's life unless it's traumatic and scary and horror, or it's something weird and different, female rage, or just very uncanny and weird girl vibes, you know? So this is giving a little bit of weird girl vibes. It's giving a little bit of obsession too, which I really like, but it's very subtle to where it's reading more like literary fiction because it is beautiful writing, but I'm bored. I definitely thought that she wrote more horror. I don't know if the last one is a lot more horror than this, but this is just literary fiction sci-fi at the end of the day. Immaculate Conception. This is about two women who meet in art school, and Inca is instantly like obsessed with, she gets to a point to where she's proving her worth and like she's becoming a lot more successful. You have like this like balanced dynamic. It literally is just their life story. Them going through art school, them finding themselves in the future, them kind of like distancing themselves from each other because of different
conflicts and aspects in their life, and they're working where Inca is kind of now marrying into a wealthier family and starting a family and that type of ordeal. She still is in an art family who have like an institute and stuff like that. They're very well known, where she is still working in this process of now trying to configure up this immaculate conception. And I don't think it's spoilery to say that. Cutting edge technology, and it could allow Inca to inhabit mind and access her memories, artistic inspirations, and deep-seated trauma. Undergoing this procedure would link her, but at what cost? I haven't quite got to that part yet. I know it's one of their next things that they're working on and they're discussing with her. Inca's new family is discussing like helping them with this process because it would be groundbreaking. And they're both kind of like uneasy and unsure, but Inca has this obsession for her that like she's willing to pretty much do anything to be in this girl's life. I don't know what to think about the rest of the story or where it's really going to go. I don't want to be spoilery here, but there's a moment where it goes up at her door and it's the Immaculate Conception. Like it's the whole title of like what's going on, and that was intriguing to me. I was like, oh my gosh, the way that she just brainstormed this and did this and the way it's going to change the world, you know, in this book, that was phenomenal. But then I felt like it just kind of left us, and now we're going into this new territory with something that can link the two of them to where Inca can feel her grief and pain and her memories and all of that, that I don't know. It's very sci-fi. It's beautifully written, but I don't think it's a book for me. I am going to continue because it is in my 25 and 2025, and I own it. Also, shout out to Aardvark for another stunning book. Absolutely love it. Yeah, I'll let you guys know what I think soon. I have finished Immaculate Conception by Ling Huang. This continued to be interesting. I was never once bored with this. I feel like there was a lot of like scientific rambling and those type of aspects. I didn't really get a whole lot of horror from this though. And I am a little confused that this is in the horror category for the Good Choice Awards because I didn't get a whole lot of horror from this. I feel like, yes, there is aspects of horror with this type of scientific experiment of taking over somebody. Absolutely. But the way that it went about it just never really screamed horror to me. It really does fall more into the like sci-fi than horror, and even just like literary fiction. Like it's beautifully written. I do feel like the sci-fi elements held my attention more than usual with like a literary fiction. But yeah, I definitely would have liked this to be a little bit more horror, even if it was just a little bit, like if it made you a little bit more uneasy, was a little more intense in that way, I would have appreciated it more. There was definitely elements of it that I was just like, ooh, or like grossed me out. Really cool concepts like throughout, but I don't know, maybe this is just a me thing. Maybe I don't find this very scary or horror. Hard one to explain because the general idea of this is very horror adjacent. Like you would think like that is terrifying to think about something like that happening in the future. Some type of experiment like this working to where it becomes a new normal. But what's hard to explain is how the writing is and how just easygoing and flowy. I feel like that's the best way to describe it. Just really took the horror out of it, and it just wasn't what I was expecting. With that being said, I still really enjoyed it, and from what I can remember from last year, her last one, I think is it called Natural Beauty? I still really want to get to that one. But if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure people were kind of saying the same thing. Like, if you're looking for just straight up horror with this, you're not going to get it. It's a lot more like subtle. There's just horror ideas to it. It's a little unsettling, but like more than anything, it's just beautiful writing and not really full on horror. So I remember people saying that about Natural Beauty too. So maybe this is Ling Huang's style. I would definitely pick up more from her in the future. This wasn't an all-time favorite for me though. I think I am landing more at a 4. I do think that there's elements of the story I was not expecting. There was definitely like some plot twists that were thrown in that I was like, whoa. Like I knew kind of what was to come because of the synopsis, but like where she took it in other directions, did I necessarily want those things? Not necessarily, but it did make a little bit of a shock factor for sure. The only other like, I feel like critique I have with this is I really wish that it dove more into the Immaculate Conception. I don't want to talk too much on it to avoid spoilers, but yeah, I feel like that idea kind of went out the window really fast, and obviously like for reasons, but I don't know, having the synopsis this has and then the title it has and then trying to intertwine those things left me a little unsatisfied. I think that's the best word. So yeah, not bad. 4 stars. Think it had a potential to be a 5-star, so that's a little disappointing, but definitely an author I would pick up again. Stephen King's newest today, Never Flinch. I want to talk briefly about the history. You guys know, if you've been around my channel, I love Stephen King. I am a huge Holly Gibney fan. Not everybody is, and I understand that, but I love Holly. I feel like people who are turned off by this series are more so maybe the people that are not wanting the crime fiction from Stephen King. Because although Holly is at the forefront of these stories, at the same time, there's standalone crime stories going on in each of the books. And I love crime fiction. I grew up watching Law and Order and CSI and all of those different shows with my mama. And over the years, she's even the one that's put me on to my James Patterson books and that type of crime fiction. And from there, it's went even further. I love me some Karen Slaughter. And although I don't watch those type of shows too often anymore, sometimes me and James will watch an episode here and there of Criminal Minds. I'm still obsessed with them. And I feel like reading is now more of my outlet versus watching TV shows. So every once in a while I get the itch and I'm like, I need to read crime fiction. By no means are they my favorite. Horror will always top that. Even out of Stephen King's books, his horror tops all of the rest for me. These are just the type of books that I want every once in a while. So I was excited that even after the Bill Hodges trilogy and everything that he put into those books, I was so excited when Holly's story came back with more and more stories and kind of just sprinkled throughout the years, because you just kind of get a little bit of that crime fiction here and there in between all of his other work. I do not have the Bill Hodges trilogy to show you guys. And I'm very sad about this. I have been thrifting Stephen King for a couple of years now, and I love when I find his books just like out in the wild at like thrift stores and stuff like that, or used bookstores. And I do feel like the Bill Hodges trilogy is a series that I'm just going to have to pay in full, and probably even more than what I would have if I would have bought them in that set years ago. But I do love a certain cover of them and a certain like spine of them, and I'm hoping I can get my hands on them at some point. But I will show you guys what the trilogy looks like. You have Mr. Mercedes, Finders Keepers, and then End of Watch. And all of them are crime fiction, but this follows Bill Hodges, and he is a
retired detective who is kind of coming back into the detective work because a certain case has haunted him for years and he never figured out who it was, and that person is taunting him now. And that kind of starts the series, and then going into the second book, we've already met Holly and some other characters that will continue throughout. They open up a private investigator type of business, think almost like Veronica Mars. And maybe that's why I loved it, because I love Veronica Mars, always have. But anyways, they work together on different cases and they get a case in the second book through that, and then into the third one. And the third book in that series is the type of book that you either love where it goes or you hate it and you think the first two are the best. For me, I loved it. Although I do think Mr. Mercedes is my favorite, End of Watch is right up there with it. I loved it. I felt like although it stayed true to the crime fiction and Bill's story, it teetered into more of like Stephen King's horror, sci-fi, and I loved that aspect of it so much. I feel like it just brought more of the horror elements and almost like a combination of the two. I loved it. Definitely was a big bang to end out the trilogy. Holly is introduced into the first one, Mr. Mercedes, but she continues throughout that entire series. And Stephen King has said that he fell in love with Holly as a character as it continued, and he wanted to bring her back. Briefly, The Outsider and the short story, If It Bleeds. This is a short story collection, but one of them in here is the continuation right after The Outsider, which then takes us to Holly. This was his 2023, I believe. Yes, his 2023 book, Holly. And once again, he said that he had to write another story around Holly. And it is just another crime fiction story with Holly at the center of it. Holly doesn't really know if she wants to take on this case or not. She's going through a lot in her life because this is all centered around COVID. It's a lot more of a heavier one since it was during the pandemic time. And I know that put off a lot of people who were not ready to revisit that time in our life. I had a really good time with Holly. I loved having Holly give me back. But with that being said, like many others, I wasn't expecting a Holly book this year. I felt like we were probably going to get another horror since last year we got another short story collection. I thought this year would just be a new horror book, and he comes out with another Holly. I'm not complaining though. Everything I said before, my history with Holly Gibney, is to tell you that this is a continuation. I feel like this is no longer a series like the Bill Hodge trilogy, but you need to read all of them before you get to this, because if you don't, this is going to spoil everything. I've already made it part of the way in, and it will spoil the Bill Hodges trilogy for you. It will spoil The Outsider for you. If It Bleeds, it'll spoil even Holly for you. You have to read them in that order to then get to this one. Although they all read as kind of standalone crime fictions, there is going to be spoilers, and I just feel like you'll get to know the characters so much more so that when Holly comes into play, you already know the type of person she is. Izzy, the detective in this, is the detective from the last one, Holly. So I briefly know of her. There's also Jerome, who is in the Bill Hodges trilogy, and his sister Barbara, who pop in to these stories as well. The character development there is so important for these stories, I feel like, although I do think you can enjoy them as standalones for crime fiction. So with that being said, I'm going to be starting Never Flinch. The dust jacket is coming off, but still, I'm at this bookmark. So like barely anything left, and there's even the afterword left. I have a second bookmark in here because there was a part I wanted to read with you guys that I really like too. It talks about how some of these churches have organized under the collective banner of AOG, Army of God. 3 of them, 2 churches in Tennessee and 1 in Alabama, warranted police involvement because of FACE, F-A-C-E violations. The freedom of access to clinic entrances. Protesting was fine, shouting insults at the women entering was also fine, although in Holly's opinion it shouldn't be. Pictures of dismembered fetuses were okay, blocking the entrances and showers of blood, fake or otherwise, were not. Following various links embedded in the news stories, Holly discovered that since Dobbs vs. Jackson Women's Health, those 3 clinics have been shuttered away, so she supposes the pro-lifers can chalk that up as a win. In Idaho, members of Christ the Everlasting Redeemer lay down in front of drag parade, while other members bless the parade marchers with seltzer water. Instead of calling the seltzer water blessings, they called it third-degree assault. Also in Idaho, just a month later, members of the same little church were arrested for vandalizing a library that was rumored to be a meeting place for PEDs belonging to the Q organization. In upstate New York, a women's clinic was firebombed. No one died, but 2 patients and a nurse were badly burned. The investigation ongoing. So far, no arrests made. Is on a website called Religion, Good and Bad. The stories concerns a melee involving 20 or so demonstrators from Real Christ Holy and a dozen or so women, Brenda's bitches, who counter-protested on motor scooters. Although Real Christ Holy is based in northern Wisconsin, the protest occurred in Pennsylvania. Now the property of Real Christ Holy, an AOG-affiliated church, the members of Real Christ Holy have protested in plenty of states on Stewart's money, not just Pennsylvania. In one case, 4 members of the church were arrested and charged with assault while protesting at a clinic in Florida. This was a year before the kerfuffle with Brenda's bitches. Holly finds an article about it in the Pensacola News Journal. 4 charged in fake acid attack at Sarah Waters' clinic. I love how he's tying in, it's almost feeling like a religious horror vibe, but sadly, like, this is real life horror that's going on. And I feel like every time there's something going on in our country, the United States, that is, how to tread lightly here. Let's say something happens that makes more so Republican, more so MAGA, more so conservative, more so religious people angry. They are the first to spout out, look, this happened, but you don't see us rioting in the street. And it's one thing and like once a blue moon. Whereas the everyday struggle that people of color, people from the LGBTQ plus community go through every single day, and they act like they're just supposed to take it. And us as allies are supposed to just be like, it is what it is, over and over again. And it's like, do you now understand that why when your once in a blue moon situation happens, for instance, the way things are right now, and we're once again saying, yeah, the GUN violence in the world is not great. Like, our country is so messed up with the laws for that. And we've been saying this for years upon years upon years. Look at all of that type of violence that we're seeing in schools with our most innocent. Like, it's another book that's hitting so close to home, but on purpose, because in a way it is hard to read these books during the times that they're being written. The same as COVID and quarantine, like I mentioned, to now seeing, like, reading this but being like, yeah, this is the reality of things. I'm not one to point my finger and say, yeah, all of you, but it's the fact that you're pointing your finger at all of the others that don't agree with you and saying all of you. These are your people. The things that are being said in this book that I just read, these things are actually happening. Like, they're out there speaking the gospel and, like, using their religion views as, like, their agenda, but at the same time spewing hate, committing hate crimes. Like, it's, oh, I could rant on for days and days, because you know what? Books, at the end of the day, there is politics in books. Books are also ways to be able to feel heard, be able to feel seen, and to be able to, yes, escape reality, but sometimes to face it head on and see that there's people in your corner who are looking at this the same way. Because right after what I read, Holly mutters, "Holy shit." And back where I started, just looking a lot different. I'm gonna make this short and sweet because it's after midnight. I almost could give this book 5 stars for all of the messaging behind it, although I am landing at a 4-star. This isn't perfect for me. I don't think that the Holly Gibney books have ever been perfect for me. I think that they have kind of landed in more of like the 4-star range. I will always love his horror at the end of the day, but I love these little books in between that he does to showcase real life horrors and to bring them to light, to kind of show his opinion on them through his characters that are loved, and to, in a way, bring awareness and to show that there are politics in books. And it's also nice to just see an author who isn't afraid to just put it how it is in books. And there is many out there. I'm just stating he is one of them. And I absolutely love that. The ending of this book is a lot. It definitely is this is happening, and this is happening, and this is happening, and this is happening, and it's all intertwining. And I feel like it wrapped up in a way that was cool. I feel like the last bit really was great. Everybody kind of getting involved, but then it kind of starts to feel a little unrealistic because everybody's there at the right time and everybody, you know, can take part in this. It's not just one hero in this, you know. Obviously there is a lot of deaths in this book, but there is still those like happy ending moments and Holly kind of just going on with her life. And, you know, will this be the last time we get to visit with Holly is what I wonder. Couple more things to kind of back up the little tangent rant I did in the last clip. One of the last conversations that was had, one of them says, "You know what, Holly, I think the religions of the world are responsible for a shit pot of trouble." And I couldn't agree more. I also loved the afterword. He talked about how this went through a lot of rewrites because he was going through a surgery to repair a damaged hip. And after writing the first one, his wife Tabitha said, it could be better. After thanking all the people that kind of helped with this book and, you know, all the publishing background work, he also said, "Last but hardly least, here's a list, sadly incomplete, of those supporters of women's rights to choose who have been murdered for doing their duty." He goes on to list them, which I will actually take a picture and show you guys, starting all the way from 1994 in Pensacola, Florida, all the way up to 2015, when a couple people were unalived when they accompanied their friend to a Planned Parenthood clinic. He then goes on to say, "However you feel about abortion, one fact is indisputable. These people were murdered for their beliefs." That time we live in. And I feel like if somebody ever said politics shouldn't be mixed with books, I will say, have you read Never Flinch by Stephen King?
Selfish, I might be fucked down, bracing for the countdown. I know I can't sleep with what I found.
I am quickly losing daylight. But today, you guys, the prompt was to, I believe, post a picture of your vampire, werewolf, witches, etc. Themed book. And so I did take some pictures of the stunning cover of Coffin Moon. And last night I started this, and then throughout today I've been working on it and finally finished it. I will say this read so fast. Sorry if you hear my cats. They're literally playing with the blinds. Yeah, it read so fast. I was able to get the audiobook through Everend so that I could listen to it, you know, when I was doing things around the house and when I went to parent pickup. And all of that. And there is vampires in Coffin Moon. This is my first from Keith Rosson, and this is in the winter of 1975, Portland, Oregon. It's all sleet and neon. Dwayne Minor is back home after a tour in Vietnam, a bartender just trying to stay sober. He is living above the bar with his wife and this girl that he's taken in, who is his niece, and he is adopted. We learn that he has something from his past that's dark, and that his in-laws, or maybe just the mother-in-law, helped him in some type of capacity. She knows the secret of his that he has kept from their daughter, and she has helped him kind of like get on his feet, and they own the bar, so yeah, he works for them. And he notices some like weird things going on at the bar. Like, it feels very much like a mobster book. You have like these rough biker guys that seem to be up to no good, and he is trying to put a stop to it because it is his family's business. And without going into a spoilery type of ordeal, I love the line in the synopsis that says, "Then a vampire walks into his bar and ruins his life." John Varley, a killer who sleeps during the day beneath loose drifts of earth and grows teeth in the light of the moon. Varley brutally retaliates by murdering Heidi, Minor's wife, leaving Minor broken with guilt, and Julia, the niece, filled with rage. And the rest of the story is almost kind of like road trip style, like vampire hunter vibe, very action-packed and just at the same time like heartbreaking and rage and so many different emotions. I don't know how to feel about it. I kept kind of leaning more towards a really high 4-star, but ultimately, you guys, I enjoyed this so much that I think that this is a 5-star read for me. There was just something so exciting about it that kept me like so invested. I couldn't get enough of it. I didn't want to put it down. And yeah, I just had like the best time with it. And this just felt like winter ween vibes too. So I just think it was like the perfect book for this readathon. And I think it's just kind of like the overall pacing. I kind of did get like the bro dude vibes with the writing, but I feel like it kind of worked to make this a little bit more gritty of a time. And like, I am losing you guys completely. So don't mind my like horrid lighting. This is my laptop. So, yeah. I think I'm landing at 5 stars. I don't think it's like one of my like top 5-star books, but I don't think I can give this a 4-star. I feel like I was just so invested and like entertained the entire time. And it was kind of refreshing to have a book that has vampires and isn't so much like rooted into any type of romantasy, and like also having more of like the action and the bits of a vampire that is still so entertaining and intriguing, and like having like this type of allure to them, but also like, I don't know, I'm a sucker, pun intended, for vampire books. And I just love hearing other, or like different authors like takes on vampires and their characteristics and all of that kind of stuff too. So that was fun navigating this. I will say one of my downfalls was yes, there was things that were very wintry. Yes, there were things that kind of seemed more like 1975, but I do wish writing style-wise, and maybe it is physically reading it, maybe those moments I just listened with the audiobook, but I do wish that the vibes were a little bit more heavier on the winter, a little bit more heavier in what decade this is set in. But besides that, I had just such a great time with this. And the audiobook was absolutely phenomenal as well. So yeah, check it out if you haven't yet. I'm excited to pick up some more from Keith as well. Thank you guys again for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. This is just the first 10 books, so stay tuned. I will have part 2 coming as soon as I possibly can with the final 10 to see how I end up ranking these and all of my thoughts on, yeah, the top 20 pick for Best of Horror 2025. But thank you guys so much again. I really appreciate it. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. I will be posting a lot more horror vlogs very soon featuring more horror books from the past and also the current. So stay tuned for that. And I will see you guys in my next video. Take 5 1 second, we put it off. Can't catch my breath.